Welcome to this ReleaseOwl presentation. Today we're going to focus on the CPI flow integration with ReleaseOwl. Within the build section of ReleaseOwl, you can sync CPI artifacts. It is also possible to compare configuration parameters between environments and to then change them. ReleaseOwl also includes a backup and rollback feature, which enables us to download and/or view a package, for example, compare different versions, and to restore previous version if need be. I will talk about this in some more detail in a moment. We also check for security and compliance for the entire code and flag any issues automatically for review and resolution. And after all these steps are completed, we can add those CPI artifacts to a release package, which concludes the build section itself. Now on to the release. We create a release pipeline once, which can include, for example, pre-deployment approvals that we can define as a release manager, as the person that's setting up the ReleaseOwl environment for a particular company. And we're also going to have in this release pipeline, of course, an automated deployment once the pre-deployment steps have been satisfied. After that, we can include post-deployment steps like email notifications, security checks, sign-offs, etc. And lastly, all associated user stories will be updated automatically in the ALM tool that you have connected to ReleaseOwl, may it be a ServiceNow or maybe a Jira, for example. Let me tell you some more about our backup and rollback feature, which can be part of a release pipeline. It takes the existing version of the CPI, IFlow, value map, package, etc., and saves it before deploying the latest changes. If we then want to roll back those changes, we can easily restore the previous version using the backup that was saved earlier. Next, let us go into the UI and see what it looks like in practice. For that, we're going to the SAP CPI environment section of our tool. Here it will list the different environments that we have connected to ReleaseOwl. And then here in the project section, under environments, we specify which environments we need for this particular project. And we can also, again, add any project that any environment we might want to have here. And they also have to specify which are the source. This becomes important for us when we either want to sync or download, because then we know, or the tool knows where to get the artifacts from. Now let's go to the build section and then select the SAP CPI management option here. In this section we can sync the artifacts if we want to, but before we show you that in detail, let's have a day in the life of a developer and what that looks like for them to work with SAP and also ReleaseOwl. So here you can see our developer environment. And within this environment you can see that we have three different packages here. And the one on top, package number 1, is the one that we are going to work with. This package has a demo iFlow that we're going to use, and it's currently on version 1.0.33. And now we're going to go ahead and edit this version. So let's take this content modifier 2 here and just delete it, and then select Save as Version. Now when we go back to the details on package number 1, we can see the version is now 1.0.34 instead of 3.3 as it was previously. Now let's take a look at our QA environment. So here you can see we have the only one package, and if we go to the artifacts, we still only have the old version, the 1.0.33. Now let's check real quick which iFlow packages have been deployed. As you can see right now there is only one. and the version at this point in time is 1.0.33, as you can see up here. So now let's go back to ReleaseOwl, and then we will show you how we use that tool to update the version. As you can see here, right now the demo flow is still at version 1.0.33. Now let's go ahead and sync those artifacts to get those changes that we made, or the one change that we made. And as you can see, the version has updated to 1.0.34. If we click here on actions, we can see multiple versions. And here we then can also just download the different version. In addition to that, now we also have the option to look at the sync history. Another important part here is that we can actually compare the configuration parameters. For that, again, I click here on that menu, click configure. As you can see here, we have our dev environment and our QA environment, and we can see if there are any differences here. Now if I wanted to, I could change the parameters and, for example, change the body size here by clicking on the edit icon and then change the value. Notice that now that there's a difference, it's being highlighted in yellow so you can see the differences easily. Now let's save those changes and then we'll go back. Now that that's done, we can go ahead and assign a user story to these changes that we just made. So we select it by checking those boxes, and then we'll go and say assign to user story, and then pick the user story that is associated to these changes. And then we can make some more selections here to take these other modifications we made and then assign those to a different user story. Now we went to the release packages. We already created one, and now we're going to edit this package and assign these other user stories that we were just working with to this release package. So now you can see how we can group different packages together, and then we can validate them all in one go as part of a release package. Here you can see the validation report. We have a total of 2 artifacts and 5 violations. Want to expand this view, you can then see what exactly these violations are to understand it better. Let's go back to the release pipeline. And now we're going to go ahead and create a new release pipeline. First, you want to provide a name. Then in the second step, decide what type it is, in this case CPI. The project is already assigned. Now we can add a stage for pre-deployment, for example. So we would like to have an approval task, and there we decide which user should be informed by email, and then in that email I will say pre-deployment steps please execute, or something like that, or could be an approval, something like that. Then we decide the CPI environment. In this case it's a QA environment, and then the action will be the upload and deploy or upload only. Then if you would like to enable rollback, check mark the box. And then we decide what we want the user story status to be updated to upon a successful deployment. this case ready for QA. And that will update automatically in your ALM tool. For the post-deployment actions, we'd also define a user that needs to be informed, and then define also the message that will come as an email to that person to tell them what they need to do. Now we just have to save it, and this is how I create a release pipeline for CPI within ReleaseOwl. Now that we have created this release pipeline, we can trigger it anytime, either manually or also via a webhook, for example. In this case, we will do it manually, so we define the cycle name, and then also decide what is the release package that we want to use, and then trigger the pipeline. This is not executing. So you see that there are these preconditions. Basically, it will ask that the person assigned for the pre-deployment task that they approve or reject this deployment. Now, once the person has done that, the deployment itself is triggering. You can see here the upload status for the different packages and the IFlow and also the value map. So the uploads have been successful, and we can see in the deployment status that some are successful already, others are still in progress. Let's refresh one more time. The configuration statuses are also updating, and as you can see, it knows whether there have been any changes or not, and if there aren't any, then it will tell you as well. And now we can go ahead and close this, refresh this one more time, and see that the deployment was successful. And now we have these post conditions where, again, the assigned person can go into their tasks view and see what they have to do. And in this case, there are these manual tasks, whatever they might be, as post deployment steps, and they can execute them. And then also say, check, we have completed those, and then it will update in the release pipeline, and then the release manager, for example, will know, okay, all this has been done properly, all the steps have completed. Now let's go back into SAP itself and check on our different environments. So you can see now that we are in the QA environment, and we have not only the package number 1, but also the other second package that we had in the development environment. And you can see here that the demo flow itself has updated. As remember, we had changed the body size, and we also had deleted a component there. Let's check on the deployment status. And as you can see here, now instead of one component, we have actually 3 different components here that have successfully deployed. As you might recall, these are the different packages that were associated to different user stories, which were combined into one release package. And you can see also the version there, it's when it was updated. Well, and now we're going to go ahead and execute a rollback to show you how that works as well. Alright, now we can go ahead and check on the QA environment and see if the rollback has executed successfully. We can open this package. Look at the artifacts, and we're back at version 1.0.33, like we were in the beginning of this whole video when we started. This concludes this video about the CPI flow integration with ReleaseOwl. Thank you very much for your time.